Jen, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yes, it's been like 15 years already. I left the country. So yes, after yes, I'm Sungbae Park. I was born in South Korea, raised in Korea. I joined Joaquin in 2005, I believe. And yes, it's been already 20 years since then. After graduating Joaquin, I returned back to Korea. That was like right after the financial crisis in 2008. So it wasn't easy for international student as a foreigner to find a job in US. So, and then I also had to serve my country. It's a mandatory thing for South Korean male to join military service. So I was back in Korea, served for 3 years, and after that, I was able to find a job in South Korean construction company as a legal counsel for in-house. And since then, for the following 15 years, I was working in construction, energy, and infrastructure field. And in 2018, yes, luckily, I was able to find a legal position in UAE, Abu Dhabi, and then I moved to UAE. And yes, I was involved in billions of international arbitration, and that lead that led to it really opened everything up after that. So I joined a European energy company, and then after following that, I'm now with Saudi Arabian infrastructure developer, which means that we are investing in infrastructure projects. We build power plants, we build highways, land ports, airports, and we invest and we get return from that while we operate such infrastructure for 25 years, 35 years. And that's why I'm in Dubai right now, investing in multiple multi-million dollar projects in the Middle East. And yes, it's good to be back and good to see you again, Jen. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start over here next. And to make sure I get all the titles absolutely correct, the first person is Joe Alindajao, and he's a deputy district attorney in Kern County. And I'll let him give a little bit of a description of what his job consists of.
And a little bit about your background too, before you became.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Alindajao. I hail from the metropolis of Delano, California, which is just south of here. I was born and raised in Delano. I have a background in the insurance business, later transitioned to becoming a lawyer. I started my law career as a law clerk in the Tulare County District Attorney's Office, then transitioned to Deputy DA in Tulare County. In 2019, I wanted to go back to my home county of Kern and did so in 2019. I've been a prosecutor in the Kern County DA's office since 2019. I'm also the former mayor of the city of Delano. I'm the current city council member for the city of Delano. And I'm happy to be here and happy to answer and help however way I can with some of your questions about law school and the process and what it's like to be an attorney. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catarina Benitez. So I graduated in 2006. I currently am a partner at LawVex. We do estate planning, probate, trust administration. I also do litigation. Prior to joining, I joined LawVex in 2019. When I first started practicing, when I first started law school, I was about a year out from college. So I was kind of in the younger group. I think the younger crowd of my class. We didn't have kids. We studied all the time, and just this was our life. And then after that, after passing the bar, I ended up joining a firm for a little while, and then I started my own office just kind of on a whim. At that time, it was during the financial kind of crisis, so there weren't a lot of jobs available, and what I was doing after graduation, I didn't really like. I worked for a creditor's firm, and as you can imagine, working for a creditor's firm during the downfall, financial downfall, it was pretty depressing. So I really didn't like doing that. Learned that very quickly. So I switched sides. I started my own practice, and then I started doing bankruptcy, and I started representing homeowners during that foreclosure era. And I was probably the only one in the area doing that. So I just, on a whim, somebody called me and said they needed some help with this loan that they had that they didn't understand. And the lady only spoke Spanish. And I said, well, let me try to figure it out. Spanish was not my first language. So my parent was my dad's first language. So he kind of guided me through writing, or he would write my form letters before the internet. So he wrote templates for me, and I kind of just filled them out and did them. And then over the years, I started acquiring just a lot of people who needed help with all these various things, who didn't know who else to talk to. And so I said, sure, I'll help you. So I did a lot of real estate matters, a lot of litigation during that time, and a lot of bankruptcy. And then as the economy improved, I started helping some of those same clients with investment properties and some handling evictions. And I kind of just followed my clientele as they were growing and as they were accumulating assets. In between that, I did some family law and realized for a while, I didn't like doing that. Some people love it, and it wasn't really for me. And then in 2018, I had my first child and decided I don't want to run my own office anymore, because I was doing everything. I was working every weekend. I was doing my own payroll. I was doing all of it, and I just didn't want to do that anymore. So I inherited another office in Madera County. I had one office in Clovis, I had one in Madera County, and I was running both at the same time. And so I transitioned to a firm that gave me a good balance with Gary Winter, who is also an alum. And so the great thing about that firm was they were fully remote even before the pandemic. So when I transitioned over, I was able to have my second child at home, and I did Zoom and everything. It's been great. So I've been able to do work. We're still a hybrid office, so we still do a lot of remote. Madera County still does Zoom. Fresno County does Zoom. Most every county still does Zoom in probate court, which is nice. So I can still work partially from home and then meet clients in person, and still be able to have a life, which has been great. So I have a great, I think now, I've been practicing almost 20 years and I finally have work-life balance. But, I think it's been great having this experience and just being local and having the colleagues in the area who you can pick up the phone and call pretty much anyone, and everyone's just very happy to help with something that you need. And that's still strong no matter who we talk to, because we're local, which is nice.
So because you had so much free time, you decided to run for president of the Fresno County Bar Association.
Yes, that too. So in between that time, I've been the president of the La Raza Lawyers Association. I'm the current president of the Fresno County Bar Association. I was on the board for Guild, which raises money for children's hospitals. So I do that in between, and yeah. So.
Sarah, you're on.
Hi, I'm Sarah McNabb. I work for the Tulare County Public Defender's Office. I grew up in the very small rural communities of Ivanhoe and Orosi, and then later in Dinuba. I now live in Visalia, so I've born and raised, lived my whole entire life in Tulare County. And I came to San Joaquin College of Law in a little different path. I became a parent as a teenager, so my options were a little bit limited when I went to college. I came to Fresno State, got my degree in psychology, basically needing a job to support my own little family of me and my daughter. And so I worked as a probation officer for about 5 years. I absolutely loved that job. The favorite thing I had of that job was being in court and doing sentencing reports and watching court. I just really fell in love with it. And, but, you know, working for the county wasn't, all it was cracked up to be at that time. I transitioned into working at a foster family agency where I worked for about 10 years, and was in upper management at that foster family agency and was really getting burned out. As you can imagine, working with children who are taken out of their homes is very stressful, very emotional. I had a lot of compassion fatigue. And at that time, my daughter was starting college. And I was like, why not? You know, why not apply for law school and see what happens? And so I did, and I got accepted into the accelerated day program here at San Joaquin. And I was going to school. I decided to just, terrible decision, but it actually ended up working out for me well. Just take out the loans, quit my job, and do school full time. So that is what I did. And so we went to school 5 days a week, all day, 6 classes. But that was all I did. So I didn't have young children to watch after, and I didn't have a job at the time. Law school was my life. I loved every minute of it, which probably sounds ridiculous and crazy. But I met my husband day one in our intro to law school class. And we took every single class together. We sat next to each other when we took the bar exam. And here we
How
are.
romantic, huh?
Yeah, right. But I started clerking as a law clerk after my first year of school here with the Tulare County Public Defender's Office. Originally, that was because I thought I wanted to be a DA. And our property professor said, maybe clerk for the opposite side, so you get a more rounded, you know, education on the whole process. But I would honestly say 1 to 2 weeks in, I never looked back, and I never had the inclination to go to the district attorney's office. I've been with the public defender's office my entire legal career. I absolutely love it. I have worked misdemeanors, felonies, post-conviction. I've been a supervisor, and now I'm the assistant public defender. But like has been mentioned, this small legal community we have in this area because of this school is incredible and opens a lot of doors for you, and is a lot of, I don't know, it's a lot of support. It's nice to walk into the courtroom and see someone you haven't seen in a couple of years since law school. I love it.
Well, Sunbay, what motivated you to go to law school in the first place?
First place. So yes, I like when we look outside of the window, like you see everything was built by a human being, like somebody or some company created, built it. And when you look at that, then you will I started to feel like how they did it. They cannot just make it from scratch. They need some system to be working, that needs to be on some platform, something is required to do that. And then from that time, like sitting outside, just wandering with my friends at a young age, I wanted to know what's behind that scene. And then I realized that everything is related to law, regulations. So why not try learning about what's fundamental to the system that we are living in? And yes, that was the reason that I decided to study law, and that led everything to what I have right now. So I applied, I took LSAT. So I'm from South Korea, but I studied in China for my undergraduate. So it wasn't like there was no LSAT books available in China at that time. There was no LSAT online courses pre-COVID, I would say. So it was just I had to get it somewhere. I think there wasn't even Amazon that time. So that you can order books from US and then get it from China. So it wasn't easy. So I had to do what I can do. And then yes, luckily Team Pearson did see my application. So I was able to join San Joaquin. And yes, it was 3-4 years spending studying with my family. I had 1-year-old boy when I joined the college. So yes, we spent time, we studied together, I would say. And yes, everything turned it in a good way after that.
So Sarah, I'll start with you again. How did you end up going to law school? What motivated that?
What's that?
What motivated that?
I always wanted to be an attorney, like when you're a little kid and like, what do you want to do when you grow up? For some reason, I always wanted to be an attorney. I don't even know that I knew exactly what that meant. But I saw it on TV and I argued a lot. So my family said, oh, you would be a great lawyer.
They always say.
Right. But like I said, just timing wasn't right when I finished high school and went into my bachelor's degree. And after that, I needed to get a job. So timing wasn't right at that time. But it was always in the back of my head. And then when I was working at the foster family agency, I could tell I was getting burned out. And I just really thought, like, if I don't try now, it's never going to happen for me. And my best friend convinced me it's never too late. And so I just took the chance and I applied and I studied for the LSAT, and that was ridiculous and crazy. And I took the LSAT and I thought, no one's ever gonna, like, this is the worst test I've ever taken in my life. What does this even mean? But hey, here I am.
Catarina?
So I always wanted to be, well, since I was probably a junior high or high school, wanted to be an attorney. I just didn't know where I wanted to go to school or what I wanted to do. I just had that idea. And then I went to college at USC in Los Angeles and I moved back home for a summer, and then I traveled and worked for a year and said, okay, maybe I should do it now. And then I applied a few different places, but cost-wise, I had loans from college, and I said, okay, I can either acquire more loans and pile them on, or I can, minimize the loans I'm going to take out. And, this was a good financial option for me. My family lived here, so I was able to live at home and mooch off of them. I didn't work full-time, I worked part-time. So I did the 3-year program, so it was kind of nice to stay here. And I didn't really know if I wanted to stay or go. And people who were here, everybody just had great things to say about being in the Valley and staying here with using that degree. So I think I stuck with it, and it's what happened.
Joe?
Well, I, on the other hand, didn't want to be a lawyer. I didn't grow up with aspirations of being a lawyer. However, I was always civically involved with my city, and in 2000, there's a lot that goes into the decision to become a lawyer. But I think the experience that stands out in my mind was in 2006 and 2007, when I led a civic group in my city and we were opposing a business that was coming to the city of Delano. And for different reasons, we were on opposite ends. And the city council at that time had to sort of finagle some of the local ordinances in order to make this business have the ability to get into the city of Delano. So I was able to reach out to a lot of advocates throughout the state, got to meet election attorneys and And during that time, when we were in a lot of discussions and whatnot, I got to see a little bit of what they do, not just locally, but throughout the state. And through that experience, I got the love of the law, appreciated the law, how it worked, the arguments, the concepts of all that goes into it. And I didn't realize, though, but at that time I'd written my first legal memorandum, which I didn't realize I did, because the city of Delano passed, and I'm not trying to throw shade on my own city, but the city of Delano at that time passed an ordinance. And we had exhausted all of our resources in terms of opposing this business coming to the city. And so I remember staying up one night and reading the ordinance, reading the state law governing this issue. And we didn't have, as an organization, enough money to hire counsel to fight this issue. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go out on the limb. I'm going to write a letter to then, I believe it was Jerry Brown, who was the Attorney General at the time. I said, I'm going to draft a letter, and I'm going to tell him how what the city of Delano has done is illegal. It's not legal. So I drafted a letter, which I, again, at that time didn't realize I was writing my first legal memorandum, sent it off to the Attorney General. He writes back about a month or 2 months later and says, you're absolutely right. We're going to order the city of Delano, certain changes to be made and whatnot. It was one of those things where it was an error that they could have corrected. And anyway, the project ended up going through, but it was quite an experience. And that was, I think, part of what inspired me and motivated me to consider a career in the law. At that time, I was in the insurance business. Different from Sarah. Sarah had a very challenging situation. I was in business for myself for many years. Had 3 young boys, one of which is my son is here today. My oldest son is a 2L, or will be a 3L this coming year, this coming fall. And so I had 3 young boys at home, and I commuted. This is why I hate my boys right now, because they get to live here and just drive 6 miles to school. But I drove from Delano for 4 years, commuted for 4 years to attend law school. And so all of that, I think, contributed to a passion and a desire to become an attorney, to advocate. I gravitated towards criminal law. It's something that it's always appealed to me ever since I can remember. So that was my track, though. Law school.
Well, I wanted to be a chemist, but I kept blowing things up. I'm serious. I was looking at research and I was blowing things up in the fume hood, and she said, maybe you ought to reconsider.
We actually have a chemist in our office. Yeah, who later became an attorney. So.
Well, this is a different kind of question, but someday I'll ask you, what tips could you give people about how to succeed in law school?
How to succeed in law school? Yes. Okay. So it's different what you studied in your college undergrad. I think, yes, it's quite different. You need to think like a lawyer. You need to do legal research like lawyers. And then all that will be, you'll be able to learn that during your first year of law school. And yes, you have Dean Pearson, you have all the faculty members that will train you how to do it. So it's not like you see in your Netflix or on the series of dramas or movies. You have to learn the skills. You have to know how to write the memorandum, how to do where to go and define the legal cases and the laws. And then, yes, San Joaquin is the place that you can train to be a lawyer, and they will teach you how to pass the bar exam. They will teach you how to complete your law degree, and then they know how to make you a good lawyer after 3-4 years. And then yes, that was the road that opened where I am. That really taught me how to be a lawyer, and then how I could adjust myself to international law, where like now I'm working in Middle East, dealing with some Saudi laws, UAE laws. Also, when I was back in Korea, I was also working on some Korean laws, but everything fundamentally, yes, you can learn during the law school. And then yes, San Joaquin was able to give that ability to me.
I have to ask as an aside, how many languages do you speak now?
Uh, just 3. I tried to learn Arabic, but it is not easy.
That's also. Awesome. Okay. Well, I'll start with Joe again. What tips would you give people succeeding in law school?
I think the first tip is know what to expect. Do your research and your intelligence gathering about what is really law school about and how to succeed. And that is, you're gonna have to learn how to do legal writing. The Iraq method. I know that sounds like a simple, I can explain it, issue, rule, analysis, conclusion. It's easy to say, but sometimes it's hard to get sometimes your brain to think in that manner. So there's a way, like I think Sun was talking about, is think like a lawyer, and being able to take information from a case law or a fact pattern and articulate that in a format that that is what legal writing represents. So know what to expect. You know, what am I expected to do in law school other than read and answer questions and be called upon? What is it going to take? I think also discipline and hard work. You got to put in the work. I always encourage students to try to work. It's easier to win a game when you're leading during the entire game rather than trying to come up from behind. So it doesn't take a whole lot of non-discipline, things that you do that'll put you behind. So try to work ahead. Don't fall behind, because it's a lot of reading every week, and you want to make sure you stay ahead. And then also, find things to relax and enjoy your family, take time. I remember studying for the bar. I think my wife wanted a 5150 hold me, if you know what that is. I was studying, many hours, and I don't know if many of you like this, but sometimes you don't know how to turn it off, because you're afraid that if you turn it off, then it's going to work against you. And so trying to find that game plan, that middle ground, that healthy middle ground for you during law school, I think is also important. So it's not just hard work, but it's also being able to take the time to relax and enjoy your life and have fun, and put it all into perspective. So that's what I'd say.
Why do we make you read so many cases?
Well, because we're trying to exhume the law out of those cases, and also how, I think in many of those cases, you're going to learn what that analytical framework looks like, especially in the case law. So I think that's the reason why it's sort of learning by osmosis, in a sense. But it's important to understand out front what you need to do and what's expected of you to do. Issue spotting on exams, you're going to get fact patterns. I'm not sure how much information gathering you've made about what's going to happen in law school and what exams are and multiple choice and what's expected. There's going to require a lot of memorization of the law and whatnot. So understand, it's always easy for me. It's always helped me in anything I do it's important for me to know what to expect before I do what I'm gonna do. And if you can do that, I think that gives you a better opportunity to be successful. So.
Same question?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So the way that I would describe getting through law school, it's like a marathon. And you have to really prep, and I think like Joe said, you have to really understand kind of what your game plan is from the time you start to the time you're finished. You know, how many years are you gonna get through it? What, you know, what classes are you gonna take? What do you like to do? As well as making sure that you have time to study. I mean, I remember I was doing it all the time. Like somebody reminded me the other day, we had the Starbucks that we would go to, and we would study there so much that the people who work there, we would like order pizza. We can't do that there anymore, but you know, we were there all the time. And that was our life. We had a small study group that we would eat, drink, breathe, everything, you know, the law, and, you know, and getting through, not just getting through the readings, but really understanding them and digesting them and really knowing how to apply what you've learned from those readings. And then don't throw out common sense either, because that's the big thing that people tell you, you know, bring in everybody has real life experiences, and don't ignore those and block them out just because, you know, you're in law school. Because law school, you don't look at it in a vacuum. It's you take all of these life experiences that you have and you figure out, okay, these are the readings that I'm learning. These are the things, the building blocks that I'm learning, how to apply what I know from real life to make sure that they fit in to get the result that you're looking for.
That's nice. Sarah?
So my tips would be a little different just because I didn't do any reconnaissance. And so I got my bachelor's degree. I had done a master's program, so I thought at school I could do that. Like, you know, what's different with law school? Oh, it's different. Humble yourself. That would be one of my pieces of advice, would be to humble yourself and stay open and be prepared to feel like you don't know what's going on. And you're gonna feel like you're the only one in the room that doesn't understand and everyone else is getting it. But I guarantee you, you are not alone. And find your person, or like Catarina said, your small group. Find people who have the same dedication as you and who you're on the same level with, because they help keep you accountable to yourself and to each other. And I don't expect all of you to find your husband or wife here like I did, but that was my person, right? Like we started off as friends studying together because we matched our dedication and you know, our knowledge level. We worked well together, we studied well together. So but you need someone that's going to hold you accountable, because it's really easy to give yourself permission, like, I need a break, this is a lot, I'm just going to do it later. And although it's very important to find the balance, as both Catarina and Joe spoke about, it's also important you have to stay on it. You can't let yourself drown in the reading or not studying for a test. So I think just finding someone like an accountability partner is really, really helpful.
Yes, once you get behind, it's virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback on something that Sarah said about finding a law school partner? And I think that's the unique thing about San Joaquin, is that it's such a small, close-knit group of folks that it's easier to find that law school partner or group that you can bounce ideas off of. I've always been, for me, and maybe some of you are more independent than I was perhaps, but I found it very helpful and useful to be able to talk about the law, hear myself talk about it with others, and confirm that I was crazy or not crazy, or that I did understand it and that was their understanding of it. And for me, trying to understand conceptually certain legal principles is important in drafting those responses on law school exams. So being able to conceptualize that, and that's where law school partners, but like Sarah was talking about, very much match your partner to the kind of intensity and the goals that you have. If you're a 10, you know, maybe, you know, partnering with the three is not a good idea. And, of course, that takes, conversations and talking and observing. But I had a law school partner as well, Nikki Kresbach, who's also a graduate, graduated with me. And I think Sarah and Jared, her husband, were partners. And I think it just makes sense and it works. So if you can find that study group or partner, I encourage everyone to do that. Speaking of partners, I'm actually in a trial right now with another SJCL grad, so it's kind of cool. Yeah.
On the other side?
On the other side.
Who's that?
Brianne Ruelas. I'm not,
Oh,
yeah.
And you don't have the judge as a San Joaquin grad too?
No, I don't think the judge is. But yeah, I'm not sure. She may be. I'm not
Who's
positive.
the judge?
Oh, no, that's, no, I think he went to school in Los Angeles, I believe.
I'm
Yeah.
giving you a hard time.
That would have been fun though.
Right?
It would have been a party. But,
Well, I'm going to give you really, not a hard question, but maybe one to delve back in your memory for a second. So I'll give you a minute to think about this. I'm going to ask you what the one thing you've done in the practice of law that gave you the most satisfaction. And to give you a little time to think, I could sing, but I won't, since that would probably drive people out of it. Sanjay, what do you think? What have you done as a lawyer that has given you the most satisfaction?
For me, for 15 years, I was in-house counsel. So I would say my works are mostly related to what my company will gain, not for the public, not for the community. So what I can say is I was involved in multi-million, like $500 million international arbitration that was held in London Court of International Arbitration. So it was under UK British law, and the venue was in London. We had to exchange documents and evidence for 2 years. We had hearings for more than 4 weeks in London. We had like more than 50 witnesses. 4 major law firms were involved. Panel of 3 arbitrators from Queen's. They're all, yes, that time was Queen's Counsel. Now they call it King's Counsel. So yes, it was really amazing experience working with all different law firm offices. Like our opponent law firms were involved in Paris office, London office, Singapore. Our team was from South Korea, Middle East, Dubai, and also London. So yes, with that experience, once you have law degree, you will be having those experience as well. You can be one of the members of the international arbitration, international lawsuits, or you can be in the courthouse in San Francisco, Fresno, or New York. Who knows? That yes, but everything. The beginning is you go to law school, you graduate, you complete your study, and then yes, once you have your law degree, yes, you will have different kinds of experience that you will never ever think of when you were 18 or 20, 25. And then that was really a big milestone for my career. And yes, I still remember working with all different people around the world.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Okay, well, Catarina, I'm going to ask you first, just to jump around. What a case or organization you worked for that gave you the most sense of satisfaction?
I think really just overall giving people a voice who don't really, have never been through the legal process and don't understand. I mean, some who can't read a legal document. You know, I've been involved in litigation cases against big firms, out of town firms and banks and lenders, and, you know, they have hundreds of attorneys, and I think navigating that for clients and going up against those firms from people from, you know, some from Ivy League degrees, and I beat them, you know, it's great. I mean, it's nice, you know, because, you know, they're like, oh, where did you go to law school? I went to San Joaquin. Oh, okay. And we're doing the same thing. And you know what? I've got a lot of money out of some of these people. But, you know, it's nice to, once I put it into use, you know, having that voice for those people, I think has really been the biggest, the most satisfaction to me, is being able to help people who don't understand the system or don't know that they can use the legal system to help them.
Does any single case jump out for you?
I mean, I've had a few. I had one that went up on appeal a long time ago. It was a foreclosure case that ended up, because of it, there were one case that ended up going to the California Supreme Court that cited my case, and it's kind of cool because I was involved in all of that. So.
Sarah?
Well, one of the things I enjoy most about working at the public defender's office is fighting for people who don't always have a voice, much like Catarina's talking about. A lot of our clients are homeless, mentally ill, have other struggles, and find themselves in these really helpless situations. But the one case that has brought me the absolute most joy, I was assigned a post-conviction caseload, and I was not interested at all in a post-conviction caseload.
Explain what that is.
So these are individuals who are serving prison sentences, who are now petitioning the court due to some change in law or something of that nature, some sort of resentencing, or you know, like, for instance, one of the main parts of that post-conviction caseload were changes due to the felony murder law in California. And essentially that was, if you were involved in a serious or violent crime and you weren't the actual killer, you could possibly be resentenced based on your minimal involvement in that crime. But I won't explain it all because it's very complicated. But I had a 15-year-old who, he was 15 years old at the time. When I got him, he had already served 15 years in prison. But at 15 years old, he was with a group of his friends, and they were walking down the street, saw someone who had been in juvenile hall with one of their friends and did that friend dirty. And so one of the friends went up to that boy who was playing basketball in the street and shot him in the head and killed him. And my client did nothing, but he was there when that happened. At the time, California law was different, and you could file on a 15-year-old as an adult. So that 15-year-old was charged with murder and went to trial and was convicted. Was originally sentenced to life without the possibility of parole until that became illegal to sentence juveniles to life without parole. And his sentence was changed to 50 years to life in prison. I had him due to that change in the law, but he was, for other reasons, he didn't, that wasn't applicable to him because he was convicted of a attempted murder or conspiracy to commit murder, which required the intent, which made that he wasn't going to be able to get relief. While I had that case, I sat on it because I was watching this law that was possibly going to pass in our legislature, which is SB 600. It did pass. And as soon as it passed, I petitioned the court to resentence him because that law that passed now allows judges to resentence anyone at any time based on a change in the law since their sentencing date. So I did that petition. I must say, this client, 15 years in prison, had only one write-up the entire time he had been in prison. He was the most polite, most patient, most respectful client I had ever had, and had lots of letters from prison personnel supporting his petition to get out of prison. And I found a brave judge in Tulare County that granted that petition. Because he was 15 years old, once that petition was granted and he was going to be resentenced, he was 15 at the time. The law has to treat him like a 15-year-old, so he went back to juvenile. And just last week, they terminated his probation successfully, and he's been home now since Halloween. So this last Halloween, he's been home. He was on probation from then until last week, and now he's just completely free. That's my biggest win, and I wasn't expecting that, but it was, thank you.
Nice timing.
Yeah.
How old is he now?
He's 31 now.
Wow.
Yeah. So he's never, he was 15. He's never had a driver's license, never driven a car, never had a lot of life experiences, but he did a lot while he was in prison, hoping for the day that he would be released. So I think, and his family's very loving and supportive.
So what's his plan now?
He's working with, his brother was working for a construction firm. So he has a construction job right now working with his brother. But he had to start from scratch. So he had to get his birth certificate, get an ID, get his social security card, all these things that he, it took a while so that he could get a job.
When you say he did a lot while he was in prison, like what, those are what you're talking about, or was there more?
No, so while he was in prison, he, and I wish I could remember what prison he was at. He helped actually teach a class at one of the local colleges there about reintegrating into the community and being, and he was also a mentor for young incoming prisoners. He held jobs at all times while he was in prison and did every educational thing that he could possibly do at the particular prison he was at. He wasn't able to get a college degree, but he took a lot of classes and bettered himself in any way he possibly could. So he took anger management classes. I'm like, I don't even see that you needed that, but okay. Like he was just anything, like he was hungry for anything he could get his hands on.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm not sure I thought that.
Well, you don't have to. Be different.
And me and Sarah on different sides of the aisle, but I think the easy answer in my line of work is we get to advocate for victims of crime, hold people accountable for actions and conduct that hurt the community as a whole. I think the one case that stands out to me is an attempt murder gang case. It was one of my first gang cases. And trial work is very challenging, but it's also very fun because it's an opportunity to connect with the very constituents that determine what justice is. And that's not something that you get to do every day. In trials, you get to connect with the community, let them know about important cases and let them know what's going on in their own community. So in that, I find a lot of satisfaction. But this particular case, it was a shooting in a town in Kern County in Shafter, California. The victim almost died. I won't go into the details of it, but one of the things that stood out to me, the Fifth District Court of Appeals just came down about 2 weeks ago and affirmed the conviction, which is always a big sigh of relief because, are they gonna like tear up my work or are they going to affirm my work? And it's pretty interesting. And I thought that was, out of all that came out of that trial, I think that ruling from the Fifth was probably the most satisfying. And it's funny because if you think about it, how many careers or jobs do you have where your life's work goes to a bunch of smart people on a bench and they get to scrutinize it, scrutinize it, line by line, and then tell the world that you either were horrible or you did a good job. And we're gonna affirm the decision. So, I've had several cases on appeal. But that was a serious case. We put a lot of work into it. We got the result we wanted, but it was a funny feeling to see that at that moment when you just get an email with the ruling, without a whole lot of fanfare to it, and I found satisfaction in that. So
Maybe not fanfare in that announcement, but there was a lot of fanfare in the office afterwards with everybody jumping around.
yeah, no, I don't think they're jumping around. Maybe I was jumping around a little bit, but that's one of the unique, I think, aspects of the kind of work we do in criminal law, and it's satisfying.
Well, do people have questions? And then I have a few things to say, and then I'll ask them some other questions. But if you have questions right now, we're happy to take a moment right now to answer them. Is somebody monitoring people online as to whether they have questions?
Are there questions? Go ahead.
Not yet.
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay, well, a couple of things that you probably already know, but I don't think you understand the intensity of it. There's so many jobs out there for lawyers in this area. It's absolutely absurd. Everyone is trying to hire and there's no one to hire. So this is an absolutely valuable time to be going to law school. And pretty much when you get out, you will be, the people that just took the bar, they were all employed the next day. The ones that passed the bar were literally employed the next day. They had jobs waiting for them.
I brought flyers. We're hiring. We're hiring too.
And actually, we had a career day, I think last October or November, and there were 24, I think, entities up in this hallway advertising positions, and there were over 100 jobs being offered at that point in time. And people were starting to interview second and third year students to kind of bring them along to come to work for them at the end of their legal education. And so it's pretty astonishing, the opportunities that are available to you. On the other side of it, I have to brag about the graduating classes. They have done phenomenally on the bar exam. You may not know that American Bar Association law schools have to meet a standard, and that standard for bar passage is that at least 75% of the class has to pass the bar within 2 years. That's pretty high. All 5 of the last San Joaquin graduating classes have met that standard, sometimes in 1 year rather than 2 years. And in 2022, the class had the final 2-year rate better than 50% of the ABA schools in the United States, without having to mortgage their house or something worse in order to be able to afford it. So it is a tremendous opportunity in absolutely any field. These are very diverse fields. Here is a question. I can't see the whole question.
Is there this one?
Which one?
She wants another question. Oh, she is to Joe. Has there ever been a case where you thought the person was innocent, but still got convicted?
No, I did, in the middle of trial, there was one particular defendant in 2019, it was an attempt murder case where the jury ended up acquitting them on all counts, where during the trial, there was some information that he may have not been the perpetrator in the attempt murder. It wasn't completely clear where it was something that I was going to bring to the attention of defense attorney, but during some jail call monitoring and review of certain jail calls, there was some indication that another person who the police never contacted was actually involved. I mean, our defendant was involved in this group fight, but that other person was never contacted by police, never named in any offense reports. But that was probably the only time where, of course, what I believe and what I can prove and supported by the evidence are two different things. Certainly if there's evidence and we have a ethical and legal obligation to disclose that kind of information to the other side, I certainly would do that. But no, I've never personally believed that any of the defendants that I've gone to trial were innocent. But had I had information to support the fact that they may be innocent, I certainly would have to disclose that.
And so, Joe, how many of your cases go to trial, or how many of them get negotiated out between the victims and the person charged?
Well, most cases are going to be negotiated or disposed at some point. Very few small, if you look at the statistical data, very few go to jury trial. So a few of them do get, or most of them get resolved, but a few go to trial. Sometimes it could also be a math problem, and without getting into all the technicalities of felony sentencing, sometimes there are some cases that just have to go to trial because the way it's charged and the way the felony sentencing laws work, you can't get to a number that represents the value of the case. So you have to go to trial.
Yeah.
For example, attempt murder cases where the evidence I believe is clearly going to show that and prove that, we can't agree to a number that would represent the conduct, the impact on the victim, the community, et cetera. And so it has to go to trial.
Right. So that there must be some, like you said earlier, some satisfaction of helping people to become accountable to their actions.
Sure. Yeah. I used to tell, I probably shouldn't say this, but I used to get asked in the community, like, why do you like being a prosecutor? And I used to always tell them, because I like sending people to prison. The reason, and I'm talking about people that don't need to be out in the community with you and I. People that are dangerous, that hurt people. And so that I think that's what's also satisfying about holding people accountable. Can I share a quote with you guys? I think this quote by John Adams, I think represents my aspirations as a prosecutor, and I think maybe others in the practice of law. And I have this in my office, and I've never been able to improve on it. It's a quote from John Adams. He says, "To what higher object, to what greater character can any mortal aspire than to be possessed of all this knowledge, well digested, ready at command, to assist the feeble and friendless, to discountenance the haughty and lawless, to procure redress to wrongs, the advancement of rights, to assert and maintain liberty and virtue, to discourage and abolish tyranny and vice." I think that really captures the essence of what an attorney does.
Wow. And tell me, how does that lead your life, that quote?
Well, I think that's, I think it speaks to preparation. I think it speaks to the values, the core values that drive attorneys, both defense attorneys, prosecutors, all attorneys, to help people. At the end of the day, we're advocating for our clients, the community and whatnot. And that's what it speaks to me.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, wait. First, in the blacker, hand it first, and then we'll go to the other two.
I have a question for Sun.
Uh-huh.
I'm not sure if you could hear me.
Yes, yes. Hi.
He says yes.
Hi. Can you tell me a little about what a day looks like for you in terms of task and responsibilities? So if I decide to move forward with law school, when I'm done, I'd like to specialize in engineering and construction. I'd like to go into that field. I have extensive experience in there with that. So can you tell me a little about your day-to-day tasks? I mean, I'd imagine you're not always in court. So what do you do day to day?
Okay, so yes, if you're first, if you're outside of your jurisdiction, so we are all the panelists are Californian bar licensed. So if you are outside of California, you need to get special permit to be in a court. For me, also, I'm outside of country. I'm in Dubai, so I cannot be in the courthouse. I not be able to represent any clients in front of the judge here. So most of my day-to-day works are advising internal teams because we do have some finance team, HR, also business development team. So I have a meeting on a day-to-day, every day, I'll say, to advise on the legal implications of a new project, reviewing contracts, providing guidance on regulatory matters. Also, I look into where there is a potential legal risk and I give some mitigation plans for them. Also, like we need to work with external legal counsel teams because in-house is we look into what we can do as an in-house team, but from external, they will look from a more objective way. So we need to work with external counsels. And so, yes, I will be collaborating with all the law firms specializing in this construction field. Or if there's any dispute or litigation, then yes, I will be managing and then giving directions, instructions to them because they are externals. They don't have full background of what the case will be. And yes, that's my day-to-day business that I'm doing here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, yes, there's another question online here from a student who is a full-time student at Fresno City College, graduating in the paralegal program this fall. And they're a full-time state employee, and they're wondering if any of the panelists could comment when they were in law school, did any of you work full-time? And what tips do you have for somebody who is working full-time and attending law school?
I did not work while I was in law school, so
I worked part-time. I didn't work full-time. I did 3-year program. So
Well, I owned a business during that times, but as the owner of the business, it afforded me some time to, not to commit so much time to being present at the business. But I did put in probably 20 hours a week, roughly. And of course, I just, your focus is law school. When you're in law school, you're in law school.
Yeah,
And even if you think you're in part-time law school, you're in full-time law school. And I think it takes a lot of dedication and focus to make sure, it's a small window of your time,
yeah,
do it right.
yeah. So if a person like this who's working full-time, which we have many of our students who do work full-time and go to law school, it is having a good relationship perhaps with your employer and maybe getting some flex time when it comes close to finals. I don't know, do you have thoughts about it, Jan?
Well, I think lots and lots of people go to law school while working full-time. And the most important thing is to have a plan and to have time set aside when you are going to study. People study on their lunch breaks. They also, if they happen to live in one of the surrounding communities, they commute with another student in that community so that they can be talking about what's going to happen in class or did happen in class while they're commuting back and forth.
Right.
And you need to have an understanding with the important people in your life that you're not going to go to every birthday party that comes up. And, if somebody wants to go to the zoo on Sunday, you might not be able to go that day. But you also have to set aside a absolutely certain time that is for the family or that person. And generally people make that Friday or some part of the weekend so that you stay connected. The other thing is you bring them to the events at the law school so that they meet the people you're going to be associating with. Because if they don't meet them inevitably I think, oh, they're going to meet people who are smarter and more interesting than I, and they're gonna leave me. And so you need to assure, I'm serious. You have to help them. You need to assure them, oh, these are real people and they're nice people. Everything will be okay. But you need to involve them.
And explain to them what it takes and what's gonna happen during law school. I think informing them as well, your husband, your wife, your significant other, so that they understand what it's gonna take. So.
Or have the help of your family. Now, I have 3 people that had their hands up. You had your hand up.
Yes, my question is for Sarah. You said that you kind of went in full tilt and just took out loans. And that was you did the accelerated program.
Yes.
So now that you're on the other side of that and you have a little more knowledge of the whole process, what are some financial decisions that you may have done differently? Or do you stick with your decision?
I am in a unique situation where I would stick with my decision because I've received public service loan forgiveness, so I don't pay on my loans anymore. And that was, I fought between that case that I talked about and my public service loan forgiveness as the biggest accomplishment. But that was when I looked at my loans and saw that they had been forgiven, that was a huge day for me. And that made, honestly, all of it worth it for me.
Yeah.
I think now it's a little different situation. But I don't think I would, even if my loans weren't forgiven, I don't think I would make any different decision. I think for me, and everyone's different, but for me to be successful in law school, it was best for that to be my only, like, not working and just going in full. But everyone's different. And I've seen, I mean, Joe and I went to school at the same time. We have a lot of the same friends and that we met while we were in law school. And one of our friends that Joe mentioned, she had her children were young and, she was going to law school. We went to law school with people who had babies while they were in law school and worked. And so I think if you want it bad enough, I think you'll find a way to make it work for you. That's just what worked for me.
Mm-hmm. And how long did that loan forgiveness program take?
10 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
In public service.
Public service. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're
No
welcome.
guarantees it's still going to be.
No, and it doesn't, right? Like there's like a pause on it or something right now. So I wouldn't
Don't
bank
rely
on that. Don't make any decisions based on that.
Lady there.
This is for the entire panel. A couple of you have said the phrase "think like a lawyer," and I'd like to know what that means to you. Just for me, taking these LSAT practice tests just reiterates how much overthinking is ruining my life right now. Were there certain things that you practiced or kind of integrated into your life to either narrow your way of thinking or expand it in order to make this process smoother and actually learn how to do this career?
I actually have an answer for that.
Good.
My name is Katie. I graduated in 2002. And I use this example all the time when I'm talking to people, young lawyers and people who want to be lawyers. And it was actually something Jan said. And the first day we were here, we were sitting in here and she wrote, it was not this fancy screen, it was dry erase board. And she wrote on the board, "Do the dishes." Do you remember that, Jan?
No.
She wrote on the board, "Do the dishes." And she said, "What does that mean?" So I started thinking, what am I going to do to the dishes? Is it just the dishes? Is it also the silverware? Is it the cups also? You have to start thinking in that realm where every word has meaning. So that has stuck with me for 25 years or more. I'm going to date myself.
Are you sure that was me?
It was you, Jan. I remember exactly where I was sitting. And it was really impactful the rest of my law school career, because whenever you're reading a law or you're reading something, okay, do the dishes. And I would always think about that, do the dishes. Okay, what am I going to do to them? And just the dishes, or it's just to think in that way, to think so broad and
Expand.
open, because The law, I don't think has ever a right answer and a wrong answer. You have an argument for and an argument against, and as long as you can make your facts fit, it's gonna work.
But when you asked about how do you get to the point that you understand that? That is the
The
reason we
reading.
have to read the
The
cases.
reading.
Because eventually, when you read enough of them, your brain just transfers and you start thinking that way. And that's why you can't become a lawyer in a year. It's just, you don't develop that skill in a year. Yes, no.
No, yeah, I agree. The reading is what gets you to start thinking that way. And the more you read and the more you start to get it, it clicks like, oh, this is how you have to look at things. And like Katie said, putting your facts into a certain rule, and you can get creative with that and make it work for you and your argument and what you want to, put across.
And so you do feel kind of lost a lot of the
Oh,
first
yeah.
year. And at some point after that, it becomes much easier even to just read the cases and extract stuff from it because you've got the method now, because you've done it over and over.
So what your biggest tip in preparing to even apply to law school and practice for the LSAT is just to keep doing the practice test.
Yeah, and the LSAT, I will just say, don't get discouraged studying for the LSAT because that's not what law school or what the bar is like. It's its own unique thing.
And don't overanalyze it
Yeah.
either. Because some of those answers, I mean, they could be just slapping you in the face and you don't even realize it because you're so busy overthinking all these other things that it could be. And it may be something just really simple.
The clowns do fit in the contract.
I think it's important to read the question before you read, go to the end and see what they're asking before you read 2.5 pages of a question. And then you get to the question and it's really more, and you're like, not to read 2.5 pages again, looking for that. So go
Yeah.
to the end,
Yeah.
read what they're asking you first, and then read the question. So you already know what you're looking for. It saves time.
They've changed it too, right, Jen? I think removing the logic games.
Yeah, they removed the part that I thought was the most fun, where you have to line all the seats up in the bus and answer the
No,
questions.
I didn't realize that.
I know most people don't, but I used to teach the law school admission test course, free course that we do. And once they took that out, I wasn't interested in it. Somebody else do it. Gentleman back there somewhere had a question and then you go in the break.
Yeah.
Go ahead. That's you.
Yeah, so you guys were talking about like work-life balance earlier and part-time work. One thing you didn't touch on that it strikes me might be worth focusing on there is not just like how much you're working, whether or not you're working. If you have to work, could what you're doing have something to do with whether or not it's practical to balance with law school? Like
Probably, yeah.
more or less cognitively taxing. for
Right.
instance.
I mean, if you're in an intense job, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but absolutely it could impact. So my son started working for the Fresno County DA's office after his first year, and I was always opposed to it. I was like, you need to be locked into law school. And so I guess the test was, is this going to have an impact on your grades? Because that's the bottom line. If it's going to have an impact on your performance in law school, then you're either going to have to cut it down or just eliminate it. And he has been able to balance the two successfully. So he continues to work today part-time. But I think that's probably the test. I mean, how is the impact on your law school study, your reading, the work that you have to put in, your grades? How are you doing on your exams versus not working and whatnot? So I think that's going to be the test.
I think, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I think it depends on what you can handle too, because everybody can handle things. Some people can just pile things on and be okay with it and others can't, and they have to focus on just school. So I think, it depends on what your bandwidth is to really figure that out.
And to piggyback on what Joe was saying, I didn't work I did work during law school. I was a law clerk for the public defender's office. But for me, a lot of that was so helpful when it came to school. So I was reading, of course, it was just criminal cases, but still doing that research and doing memos and doing motions was so helpful to learn like how to write like a lawyer, you know, how to talk like a lawyer. And on top of how to think like a lawyer. So for me, I found it very helpful, but I worked, it was part-time. They were very flexible with me because they knew that I wanted to work there as an attorney when I finished law school. So I was very lucky to have that type of situation.
If I can just speak as a current student. Hi, everybody, my name is Jimmy. I'm a current incoming 3L. Talk about that a little bit more. I own a business. I work full-time. I'm a father of 3 children.
Wow.
It's a lot to carry on while going through law school, especially with all of that. And this is something that happened to me after my first year. During the final of the spring semester, my family and I decided to go to Hawaii for vacation a week before the final.
Whoa.
Surprising. I was doing review classes in the hotel while everybody was at the beach.
Yeah.
And after class, I would just come up to them wearing a polo shirt and shorts and say, hey, how's the water? But that did impact my grade a lot because our first exam was Civ Pro during that time. And not a great grade. I would say this, Civ Pro is the subject that I hate the most. But
Say that again, what's this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Civ Pro is actually the subject that I hate the most, but it's a great subject. You learn a lot, especially I worked in PI.
Back up.
I worked in PI and it helped me a lot. Personal injury, if those that don't know what PI is. But going back to that, that's where I learned that I had to talk to my parents. I had to talk to my family. I had to let them know that this is something that I need to be committed to at one point. So after that, I lessened some time with the family, was there for birthdays, was there for other special occasions for my immediate family. But everything other than that, I was like, no, I have to step back. We can't go. And then I was still doing my business. I was still working. I left my job during the summer and then I went back into it because I needed to go back into it. So it all depends on what you can handle. This past year has been a very good experience for me. It's humbled me in a way, but it does all depend. It entirely depends on what you think you can handle and what you believe is the right move to do.
I have this young man
Yeah,
here.
no, from the audience, I've got one when you're ready.
Okay, next.
I would ask the panel, for this school, what's the one thing you like the most and what's one thing you would change about it?
I was gonna ask him that.
The community, really, there's nothing that beats it. The community of lawyers that this school produces are quality and supportive, and I think we're our own little, I don't know, it's a tight-knit community. I think that if you needed help with something, you could reach out to and just say, hey, I went to San Joaquin College of Law and I know you did too, and I have this issue and I don't know if there's any way for you to help. And I've had that, I've been on the other end and I work harder, or faster. I'm easier, I'm quicker to respond, I think, when I know it's a community member. Yeah.
I would agree with that as well. I think one of the advantages of San Joaquin College of Law is that it's a close community of folks that are, trying to get it done. And I think if you compare that to other larger schools, and nothing to say negative about those schools, just they're highly more competitive. The camaraderie and the sense of community isn't there. So I think that's one of the strengths of the school.
And I think the quality of the education that you're going to get here, I mean, it's the same as what you're going to get anywhere else. And I know that because I've been up against attorneys from other areas. took the bar exam sitting next to someone I grew up with who went to an Ivy League school, and guess what? We passed the same bar exam at the same time. And we're not in the same fields, but you know, she's sent clients to me and vice versa. And so I feel like the quality of the education that you get, it's great. You just have to be committed and make sure that you put that time in, because I think it doesn't matter where you go to law school, but if you don't put that commitment in, you're not going to get what you should out of it.
So
As far as-
what do you think?
Okay.
Yes, so I will just add that, like Tim Pearson said, San Joaquin has a above average, quite high California bar pass rate. That is, I think, is very important compared to other like big law schools. We do have nice pass rate that will bring everything to you, because that means that they know that the faculty will train you well. You will be ready for the bar exam. You will be ready to be a good lawyer. And then that really means a lot.
He also asked what was the worst thing.
No, what would change?
Change, yeah.
What would you change? I see.
I can't think of anything. Or bring back law review. I hear
I
that
would love
that,
to
yeah.
have law review. We don't
Yeah.
have enough people interested in
Because,
doing it.
yeah, that was one of my favorite things about my experience here. So
Is the
And
width,
now we have to start from zero.
I know.
Well, and that's fine if there's a group of people that want to do it, but you know, it's also a major commitment.
for sure.
is the Whitkin tradition still
What do you mean by the Whitkin tradition?
the highest grade in,
Oh, well, Whitkin quit doing it, but we still do it. Which means everyone, the person who gets the highest grade in each class gets a certificate. So, you know, some people are papering their walls with them, and so.
I have to do those.
Jan, there's like 3 or 4 questions here from the audience, from the people online, and I'll kind of weave a couple together. Allie is a computer science major, and this is for all the panelists, but Allie is a computer science major and she's thinking about going to law school. So she's looking for advice with knowledge in computer science. How can that integrate into law? And along the same line, 2 other students, Michael Gardner and Jay Gray, are asking, like, in general, what typically determines what law discipline or path a student takes? And then Jay says, similar to the question above, how did you develop your interests? And this is a question for all the panelists. Was it your interest that you brought to law school? Or was it something you learned in law school that brought you to your interest? And you're all practicing in very different areas, and whether you're computer science or psychology or environmental, I mean, can you share, each one of you share a little bit about how does one choose what area of law they go into? And maybe Catarina, will start with you.
Sure. I have like legal ADD. I feel like over the years, I've kind of just done a bunch of different things because I thought I wanted to do one thing and then I just didn't know. And I kind of fell into a few different things. And, you know, I decided what I liked and then what I didn't. And, you know, ultimately what I'm doing now, actually, aside from what I'm doing, I had a contract that I started out with doing juvenile dependency. I still do that in Madera County. I was doing that in Fresno, Madera County. But I've held on to that again, because I have like legal ADD, because I really like it. And I feel like I just can't let that go. And when I let go of my Fresno contract, it was during COVID. And I was so busy doing what I was doing. And when I had my other child, I'm like, I need to let something go. And so I called and I was almost crying. Like, I can't do this anymore. I just don't have enough time. But I think really, you know, I would say during law school, the one thing I regret that I didn't do was probably work with different types of firms or different industries to kind of figure out what I liked, because I just really didn't know at the time. And so when I graduated, some people are like, I want to do this right off the bat. And I just really wasn't that type of a person.
So your career focus chose you, sort of?
Right, right. And I love what I do now. I love it now. But it took me some time to kind of navigate and weed out the things that I didn't like doing before I got there.
Awesome.
But the question about computer science, that's one of the areas where, science-based fields you can apply for this patent bar, which, I didn't have a science-based background for undergrad, but yeah, so you can.
Patent attorney over here.
Yeah, so I mean, that's one thing if they're interested in doing that, that's one thing they can do.
Internet law or.
I mean, there's so many different, I feel like it doesn't really matter what undergrad degree you have anymore. I mean, other than the science-based one, but you have to figure out what you like. And then really the only way that you're gonna know what you wanna do, I think, is if you're in that industry. Because some people have a mindset and they go into this that they wanna do a specific thing and then they get there and they may not like it. Because they are, something on TV or somebody told them they glorified it and they maybe just don't like doing it. Other people, they start from day one and they love doing it and that's all they've done and they love it. So everybody, I think you just kind of have to figure out what you like to do.
Right.
And then you can always find an industry that will take you and support whatever it is that you want to do.
That's awesome, Catarina. So opposite from you, Catarina, Sungjae Park, it seems like Catarina's career focus chose her, but you brought probably a lot of your international focus to the direction you chose. Can you comment for these students about how you chose your area?
So yes, to work in US, I had to get a sponsorship or some kind of employment visa. So it wasn't easy to do that. So the other choice I had was to work in international law field. And really, like you need to find where you can shine, which field, whatever field that you work, whether it's labor law, family law, immigration law, you need to know, you will know that where you can shine. Because if you have let's say, computer science background, then it's patent law or working for Amazon, IBM, Google will be your career path.
Yeah.
For me, I liked construction infrastructure thing, so I decided to continue my law career with construction field. I also wanted to move to different field in between. Like now South Korea is quite famous for K-pop. So I had a chance to go interview for BTS.
Oh, wow.
Yes, their management firm, but at the end, I realized, okay, if I want to be above other lawyers, I need to be in the field that I have experience with, where I want to learn more, where I can continue for next 10 years. So I thought it would be construction, energy, infrastructure, and then that was ultimate decision that I made, and then that led me to my career in Middle East. And yes, I'm in Dubai now.
Awesome. Thank you, Sung. So Joe, did your career choose you or did you choose a career based on courses or internships? The question here from Jay is like, were there certain courses at San Joaquin that led you to your career choice?
I think probably Dateline led me to my, I was a Dateline junkie. I don't know how to explain it. I was inherently drawn to justice and law enforcement and whatnot. I mean, for a simple explanation, but I think also I think I divide the practice of law into two categories. Essentially, I think there's transactional practice of law and then there's trial work. And I was always drawn to trial work. I wanted to be in the courtroom. I wanted to be, presenting cases and whatnot. Another thing that drew me to prosecutions was the collaboration that prosecutors have with law enforcement. I enjoyed that. I've been able to not just be a prosecutor, but also quarterback investigations on serious cases and work with other professionals in the law enforcement community and have built some great relationships and that's been a lot of fun. I think that part of it. I think I enjoy the investigation part of it more than I do perhaps the prosecution side of it in terms of presenting the case. I very much see being a prosecutor as a movie director. You know, you got to present a story, and you know, how are you going to tell that story to these 12 individuals? And I think that's part of what drew me to doing trial work. And yeah, I can't think of anything else, but yeah.
And then just lastly, Sarah, I know you went straight into becoming a public defender, but could you address the students' comments about courses in law school that maybe germinated your interest in the area of practice that you went to?
Yeah, much like Joe, I was a Dateline junkie, court TV junkie, not to age myself, but I watched the Menendez trial #1, like during the summer when it actually was live on court TV. And I think that some of the courses that I took while I was here at San Joaquin just reinforced that for me. I didn't, I mean, of course, other areas of law were interesting, but I didn't have that curiosity that I had with criminal law. And I think you have to find where your curiosity grows, and that's where your interest is. So, you know, I've always been fascinated with why people do the things they do and why they treat people the way they treat people. That's what brought me to psychology as well. And I think crim was just the perfect fit for me. When I came into law school, I was thinking of myself more as a DA, and I think that was because of my experience as a probation officer. But like I said, once I worked at the public defender's office, I never looked back. I enjoy the fight. Fighting for the underdog has just been my life, my career, I like fighting for those that everyone else has given up on. And I like the negotiation. I like trial. It's a good fit for me.
We have a grad who was a producer for court TV.
Who?
The guy that sponsors the scholarship.
Oh, gosh, I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I can't remember his name right now, but we also have a grad who took his interest in computer science and worldwide represents designers of computer games. Right. So it's really, you can do anything with.
And Jen, another thing too, we talk about what desire led to the job that you do. Sometimes it's sort of a little bit backwards as well. Like, imagine what that job would be like. And I think sometimes it either scares you away or it draws you in. You know, like for example, I have a friend who's I guess deathly afraid of. She doesn't want to go to court. She doesn't ever want to. Doesn't have any interest in going to court. I don't want to be in front of a judge. I don't want to have to say anything. And that's, you know, she's in transactional law. So understanding, maybe imagining what you'd like to do, or to think about it, and does it scare you or does it draw your attention? And that might be another way to.
There are also research clerks for the Superior Court, the District Court of Appeal. All the different courts hire a lot of research.
And those are great jobs as well.
Yeah.
So not everybody's gonna want to do the trial work.
Yeah. Other questions?
What percentage of your work product is influenced by AI in any way?
At this point, none.
Yeah, none. Just I use AI for research. AI has made it a lot better in terms of legal research, targeting the actual issue. I don't know if it's been anyone's experience, but when we do legal research, we typically start off with some phrase or words to begin the research. And then you have to look in case laws trying to hunt down your issue. And it could be an arduous process. With AI now, you can just ask the very singular issue, and the research AI will provide all the information for that specific issue. So as far as legal research, I use that a lot. But in terms of content creation, I don't use it for that.
I'm gonna differ from that because you can't rely on AI for research. And I've seen it happen. I actually got a copy, not in my office did this, but somebody passed along a copy to me of a demur that someone filed using AI, and it's not real case law. So you really have to be careful with AI. You really have to check and actually go back and, you know, make sure that the authority that you're relying upon is actual real authority.
Check
You know,
the source.
I'm sorry?
And give sources.
Yes,
The source.
you always have to check the sources. My firm is really big. Like I said, our firm was probably one of the first in the valley that started doing things remote before COVID. And so we use AI for intake. We use AI for calls, sometimes just for note-taking purposes. We use AI as an assistant for research. We don't do it necessarily for legal research, but just to get, you know, the premise of, okay, can we do this in a particular case? You know, in the probate field, I just used them today. We had a new law that passed in January, and I was in probate court 2 days ago, and Judge and I didn't agree on what this new code section said. So I started going down this rabbit hole in AI and then researched it again. And I was like, okay, he's right. Got some other stuff about it. So, you know, it can be a helpful tool, but definitely do not rely on it
Yeah.
because it is not still shaky. There are a lot of companies out there that try to sell these AI-based products like for discovery and stuff. And I just don't, I mean, at least me personally, I just don't think it's developed enough yet to be able to really rely on it. But I think as a starting point, I think it's helpful because if you need like, you know, you want to draft a brief and you need like an idea for a concept, I think conceptually it's nice. But what AI does is it pulls from already used sources. So it recycles information and that's how it grows. And so you really have to be careful that the information that's being recycled is accurate information. But I think again, the idea that I think is great, and I think in time it will develop to be even greater. You know, so my thought on it.
Yeah. Our office right now, we aren't using it at all. We're in the process of realizing we need to develop our policies and procedures about AI. So that's kind of where we are, in the same boat, like just fearful of using it too soon and relying on it when, you know, we rely more on Westlaw and, you know, things like that for, yeah.
Well, there's another question online, and that was, what would you recommend people do now to prepare for law school? Read. Read. I don't know what else you would recommend.
I think I would have, you know, if I had to do it all over again, I think I would have started preparing for the bar exam at the beginning in terms of like just reading questions and understanding how the bar exam thinks, so to speak. Because I think having that, just reading things and starting to understand that, you kind of get that concept of once you start law school, it starts to make a little bit more sense. Because, you know, at least for me, when I did law school, I kind of just jumped into it. I had zero background. I didn't have any family members who were attorneys. None of my family members had advanced degrees. So I kind of just went in blindly. And afterward, I thought, oh my gosh, you know, I was taking the bar review classes. I was like, I should have just done the bar review classes like at the beginning, even though the concepts were foreign. I think it would have helped me understand kind of what I was getting into. So maybe just flipping through some books and bar exam review books and trying to figure out what these bar exam test writers are thinking. And so you kind of get a jump start on that.
Okay.
There is a question, how did you all prepare for the bar exam?
Oh, wow. I did it, well, my husband, now husband, and I studied like it was a full-time job, 8 to 5 every day, but 5 was our cutoff. And that's what we promised each other. Like we would wake up in the morning and do our morning routine and then study, take a lunch break and study like it was our job. But in the evening, we actually got really into playing video games. No way to like blow off steam. And we had puppies to take care of. So it was, you know, we just did it like it was a full-time job. but with breaks. And I think that's the important thing, with breaks, because you get to a point, and I think Joe had touched on this before, where you get to diminishing returns, right? You're not getting your bang for your buck, past a certain amount of time of studying. I was a Themis rep and my husband was a Barbary rep. So we kind of did this hybrid of both to see what worked best for us. We then ended up primarily using Barbary and really going over model answers that were on the bar website and looking at those model and like doing a question, answering it ourselves, but then looking at all the model answers and seeing like what it takes to write a passable essay for the bar. Because it's different than, it's different than like a perfect essay. You have to like hit the main points, and just teaching yourself how to do that is a whole entire process.
I think whatever you do during law school that, to your time management, carry that over to studying for the bar exam. I had to take it more than once. The first time I took it, I think I just burned myself out. And I also didn't have any sense of urgency. Like I didn't have a family. I didn't have like any financial obligations. So I was like, okay, and I just studied a lot. And so I think, and which wasn't what I did in law school, because I did take breaks and I did space things out. And so I didn't do the same thing that I did in law school when I studied for the bar exam. And it really hurt me. The second time around, my father had cancer. So the day that I went to take left to take the bar exam, he had surgery. And I think that kind of just triggered things for me, like, okay, I really need to do this now. And I also, during that time frame that I was studying, I treated it like a job. So when I was in class, I did it so many hours a day. And then when that day was done, I was done. And I was able to take those mental breaks. And I think that really is what helped me, because before I was just so, I guess, scared that I was going to fail, that I did, because I didn't take breaks and I didn't allow myself to really have that, sense of alone time. So I think really just having that balance. And again, whatever study habits you acquire during law school, use those same study habits for studying for the bar. Don't do what I did. Don't change your study habits, become more intense or less intense when you study for the bar, because those patterns have worked. They're going to work for you during law school. So don't change what you're doing to study for the bar exam.
Saga, is there anything you want to add about bar prep?
For me, yes, English as second language. I think there was a question at the beginning, like what was the work-life balance during the law school? For me, the first year of law school and right before the bar exam was full-time job. Yes, you need to focus fully and be prepared for that, because it's not going to be an easy exam. Like first year law school, you will need to transform yourself into a lawyer thing. And then for bar exam, it's an exam. It's not the 3 years of law school will help, but still it's an exam that you need to be prepared. You need to know what they're asking for, how you need to find the answer, correct answer. So for me, it was like more into going into the question and the answer, and going at the end of the book, reading the why, the reasoning between that answer. And then, yes, it wasn't easy, but I did it. I was born in Korea. Yes, so anyone can do it.
I will add that the best preparation for a bar is to do well in law school, because we keep statistical data. And if you graduate with your GPA above a certain point, it's about 72, which sounds really low, but that's not bad in law school. You probably have a very high percentage of passing the bar. What you're doing in bar review is just bringing it all back up to the surface and practicing using it.
And assuming that the bar exam is just a big giant memory exam, really, if you think about it. There's about 18 subjects of law that are tested, which you have no idea what those topics will be. But assuming that you've mastered Iraq during law school, which you should, I think one of the things I tell my son, who's going to be a 3L this fall, is, and I told him this first year in law school, come up with an attack plan of how you're going to address essays, law school exam essays, and then just perfect that over the next 3 years. And assuming you've done all that prep work, then it's just a matter of absorbing the law, understanding the concepts. I was not as disciplined as Sarah because she stopped at 5 o'clock. I was too afraid to stop. So I was studying sometimes 10 hours a day. And, you know, my wife was like, you need to calm down. But it's just, you know, we're all sort of wired different. And anyway, you just have to put in a lot of work. One resource that I really, really love that I'll share with you now, even though just at the beginning of law school, is a website called baressays.com. What I love about baressays.com is that it has almost every bar question that's available. But the neat thing that they do, they actually buy essays from students that have failed the bar exam. And what's neat about their system is that they will give you all the 55 answer responses, the 65, the 75, the 85. And they'll give you an idea or show you what a high score or high response score was versus a low response score. And you'll start to pick up patterns of the high scorers. And I think that's things that you can glean from those exams. So that's just a resource that you guys ought to think about early.
A great idea.
I could tell so many stories, but we've been here long enough and you're getting stiff. So thank you very much for coming. Thank you all for doing this. Thank you someday for doing this and just being here because we're so thrilled to see you. Thank you, everybody. We'll stay around for a
Thank
little
you.
while. If people have individual questions. And I know people online, so I guess send questions.
Yes, there's a few questions from those of you online that we didn't get to. Feel free to send them to me or Darius and we'll forward them to the panelists. And before we close, if we could just have each one of our panelists maybe make one closing remark or wish to this group of people thinking about stepping into this adventure.
I'll start.
Go.
Good luck. And it's actually not going to be luck. I think you all are here because you have a desire and a passion to pursue the law. And I think all you have the capability, talent, and the gifts, and hopefully the support of your family to do well. It's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be long nights, but it's also going to be very satisfying. And remember, it's not going to last forever. So put all your effort into the next 3 years. And I think the outcome is going to be exactly what you want it to be.
That's awesome. Sung, how about you?
Yes, so I would just add that I know many of you at some point questioned that what does college degree or law degree really matters today? Because everything is one click, followers, that matters to everyone nowadays. But my answer is yes, it could change. And it's not just the paper that gives the power, it's you who creates the value behind your law degree.
Nice.
So take ownership on your career development, seek out mentors, ask questions, never stop learning. Yes, everything is on your hands.
Beautiful. Catarina.
So one thing that you have to remember, I mean, you're going to get a doctoral degree. I mean, it's a big deal. There's a small percentage of Americans who have an advanced degree. And so getting that degree is really important. And you working hard and getting that degree, I think you need to be very proud. First of all, be proud that you're here and that you want to do it and that you have motivation enough to want to start this journey, because it is a journey. I would say it never ends. It never ends, but I love it. I would never, in a good way, right? But I would do it all over again in a heartbeat. You're going to have really hard times. You're going to have really fun times, you're gonna have memories, and some people will have, bits of anxiety but overall, enjoy it and work hard because it's gonna be both and it's gonna be roller coaster, but you'll get through it.
Awesome. Thank you, Catarina and Sung. And we'll close with you, Sarah.
Well, thank you. I would say invest in yourself and take the risk, and you can do more than you think you can. But I wouldn't have the life I have right now if I didn't go to law school, and I'm grateful for the experience, and I'm grateful it brought me to where I am. And I think, you can do it. You just put in the work and take the jump and don't look back.
Awesome.